Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, MetaZone, Roby, and MScribe, and today we're going to be talking about dynamic TAO and how to get started and all.
Well, you can't get started yet.
In 4 days.
Projected to be on the 10th, according to like the Bittensor Foundation, right? So that's when the show will begin, allegedly, unless, I don't know. Apparently there's like a Senate when it comes to TAO. There's like an actual internal committee happening. I think like some of the top 10 validators are part of this like governance committee.
Top 12,
whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So they're gonna meet at some point over the weekend, I guess. They're gonna essentially all vote: should we do dTAO or not?
Yeah.
And if they all agree, then expect by Monday-ish, around that time of the week, it'll be live, and then you can actually start partaking.
Yeah, this is a deep subject. So partaking into what exactly? So they'll be partaking in converting your TAO tokens into alpha tokens.
Yeah, which is essentially a subnet token. So we've talked about Bittensor a lot in the past. You know, the idea of it is it's a decentralized infrastructure network that supports AI, essentially. Leveraging the same like economic model of Bitcoin to aggregate, computational resources and such through an incentive token. Like, Bitcoin is that incentive token. TAO is that incentive token in the Bittensor ecosystem. So it's working. You got a lot of participants, a lot of people competing for this resource, this commodity called TAO.
Yeah, and the only difference between the tokenomics of Bitcoin and TAO is that TAO can be staked into validators, and those validators earn the emissions of the TAO token.
Correct. Yeah, because the complexities of like what this network is to produce is much more. It's much greater than what Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, you're just trying to solve some hash.
Yeah.
Hash problems. That's about it. All these nodes all over the planet, they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But in the Bittensor ecosystem, there's a lot more like dynamic, I guess, operations to, sustain a decentralized AI network, right? So yeah, let's bifurcate this into these things called subnets. So some subnets can be much more like inference focused. Others can be like, I don't know, some text language model focused. Another one can be like a 3D image or 3D asset generator, right?
Basically, any subnet could be any multimodal subnets, like anything that's related to AI infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you have your own GPU cluster, like Elon does, you can connect it to a Bittensor and create your own subnet so that people can leverage it. And
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it's cool, right? So now that's how TAO is being emitted, essentially. There's like a validator ecosystem where people allocate their own TAO to these subnets, and based on that like weight of distribution, that's how TAO is emitted and assigned to these subnets. So I guess that didn't go so well. There was like some backroom collusion between validators and subnets. So we need a much more transparent, open market model, right? To kind of like assign value to these subnets. So that's what dTAO is. And that means we use TAO to assign like market value to a subnet simply by swapping it.
Right. Swapping to the alpha token of that subnet.
Pretty much. Yeah. So it's a new speculative market, right? But yeah, we were trying to identify how like speculative, how much velocity will exist in this market. So there's some differences between what this is and like what you will see like on virtuals or pump.fun or whatever.
Yeah, they're trying to clearly stay away from any of that activity.
Yeah.
In their own design here.
Correct. So yeah, let's go through that
Yes.
FAQ.
Yeah, so we're looking at the FAQ and their documentation, and if you ever wanted to deep dive into dynamic TAO, this is a good place to start. And I wanted to highlight here a couple of things. And the first thing is that can users transfer alpha tokens? So you find a subnet, you're like, okay, I want to swap my TAO tokens for the subnet because I think it's going to be valuable. So you swap it for the alpha tokens or whatever. Are they all going to be, they're not all alpha tokens. They're going to be subnet tokens, right? They're going to have their own ticker, presumably.
Yeah, I think that's just the classification.
Right.
Subnet's token is its alpha token, right?
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, they all have their own.
It's like an ERC20 classification.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So you swap for this alpha token, and but you cannot actually transfer that alpha token. It's
Mhm.
like you stake your TAO, you get the alpha tokens. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down in terms of value, and the only way to like liquidate that alpha token is by swapping it back into
Back
TAO.
to TAO. Yeah, I think so. That's one of the differences, right? When understanding the dynamics of this market and what's happening abroad in the crypto space, like with meme coins and such, because essentially these alpha tokens function as a meme coin, right? I don't, at least initially, I don't see any of these as being like
Utility tokens for that subnet.
yeah, like serve some sort of functional purpose to like maintaining that subnet's ops. I don't think, as far as we know, it's really just like each subnet gets issued its own meme coin for the market to essentially, buy or sell, like you do on pump.fun, right?
Yeah.
Somebody deploys a ticker. Now it's free. It's a free market game. If you could either buy or sell, and then that's what dictates the price. And in this case, it's either by you're not really swapping. Really, what you're doing is you're staking your TAO into these subnets, and that's like affecting the liquidity pool between the alpha token paired to TAO, right? And that's what dictates the price.
Yeah, and the tokenomics match exactly to TAO. They have 21 million tokens. They have a halvening.
Yeah, that's weird. That's another weird wrinkle in this. Like, you go to pump.fun, everything's a billion supply, right? And it's all distributed during that bonding curve period, stuff like that. So this is like, there's like a lag phase initially to this like alpha token emission,
Yeah. Were you able to determine if the halvening event matches Bittensor or is its own like
I think it's exactly
timeline?
the same, I think.
Okay.
As far as I could tell. But I think that there's a distribution curve here that's like in the beginning stage is much more aggressive because they're trying to actually transition the power away from like validators to alpha token holders. So they want that like intersection of transition of power to come sooner rather than later.
I see.
So like the alpha token emission rate is higher initially, I think, or it's just higher in order for that cross section to meet. Right?
Yeah, and the whole point of this design is to allow the community to determine organically what is valuable and what isn't by how many people are holding an alpha token.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? So I wouldn't label this as like one of the biggest, especially factoring in market conditions. Like they're pretty terrible right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys haven't noticed, it's like every day the bleed continues.
Right.
So yeah, this thing is kind of like launching in the midst of that. So I wouldn't expect this to be like, some runaway explosion of like activity initially, right?
Yeah.
But still, nonetheless, like because of its design, it's more tailored for like a long-term trajectory, which is actually favorable, right? That's why you want to kind of like experiment during this early stage.
Yeah, and the profile of this tokenomic design is probably not for like the degens specifically, where like if the typical degen would rather be on like pump.fun or something like that.
But maybe that's bleeding out. Maybe the bleed is strong enough to where, it's time to like go back to our roots actually, where we want things that have much more long-term sustainability, right? So
yeah, so the other thing to note here is that there is one subnet called root, and that's the subnet that when you stake into it, that's the one that you earn TAO tokens.
Yeah, so that's basically like if you just want to maintain what has been up until now, it's like stake your TAO for a validator and you get like some sort of return, more TAO.
Yeah.
That's what you would do to kind of like maintain that like strategy, essentially.
Yeah, I guess for those people who don't want to speculate on alpha tokens, but they want to earn more TAO, like you got the one shot.
Yeah, but the problem with this is that emission goes down over time as more alpha tokens are like introduced.
Right, and then there's a halvening event at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right. So it gets less, but maybe the price goes up as a result.
Right. So if you're not that type of person, you want to, be a little bit more risky. And now is the time. So to acquire some TAO and prepare, because, by the time this video comes out, you got probably a few days to really study up on some of these subnets. But again, I don't think you're not going to like drop the bag if you're not prepared by Monday, right? I think this is the thing that's going to play out over like months.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the price right now is 2.7 billion market cap for Bittensor, and it's seen its all-time high hit twice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, this is like a pretty reasonable time in the context of like its history. All right, moving on. So how do you get TAO tokens and where do you store them? Polkadot.js. That's the wallet.
Yeah, go to the markets tab on CoinGecko. In case you guys don't know, it's like that's what tells you like where you can actually acquire TAO. So your typical centralized exchanges, we don't have access to most of these because we're in the United States, so it actually is kind of difficult to acquire. But yeah,
Coinbase announced that they're looking into adding Bittensor to Coinbase.
Yeah, I don't know how it's on their roadmap, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a 6-month out
roadmap. There's only 2 tokens that they mentioned too, right?
Yeah, it was like EtherFi or ETHFi or something like that. And then TAO.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're U.S., part of the U.S. jurisdiction, I guess.
Keep waiting, I guess.
Yeah, well, Coinbase soon. And then it should be pretty accessible at that point. And then, yeah, like you're saying, Polkadot.js, there's some front-end interfaces where you can like seamlessly swap between assets and subnet tokens.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely you'll be connecting to this wallet.
Yeah, and make sure, I mean, we did this a long time ago, but make sure you're at the correct URL because there are some fake Polkadot.js sites.
Yeah, why Polkadot? Well, because the Tensor's chain is a substrate chain. As far as we know. When we did our research 2 years ago, that was quite shocking to us. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
What is this Polkadot thing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like they said that they're no longer on Polkadot, but...
You know what? I think it's still a substrate chain, but at some point, I think they'll do some other, like, transition, I guess, to a new chain. Of maybe, like, their own design, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so here's some other websites for you to keep track of, taostats.io. So shows market cap and more data, subnets, validators. And so if you wanted to have an entire list of the subnets, like here's
this is it.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, literally, and this interface kind of details what's happening right now, right? Like what share of validation these subnets are garnering. Therefore, like that determines their TAO earnings, right? Mm-hmm. And then the validators themselves who are like making these allocations. So a lot of these are like, people from the community, they kind of like commit their TAO to these validators for them to make these decisions. And then you just kind of like earn a residual for contributing that.
Yeah.
So that's today's ecosystem. And yeah, it's very gameable, right? Very centralized, I guess. It can be because, power tends to, condense to a few actors in this type of setup.
Yeah, we were listening to one of the validators just a few minutes ago, and they were saying that they hold like 6% of the emissions of TAO.
Well, yeah, they determine like...
Yeah, so they determine where they stake that TAO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, so yeah, you can imagine, some subnet and some validator with that much influence, they just simply, hey, stake it over here, and like we'll split. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, right? So this is what they're trying to mitigate.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, yeah, just click on that subnet tab right there at the top. Right there.
Right here.
Yeah, that's all of them. Go through the list, guys, 1 through 64.
Yeah.
I mean, if I wanted to definitely do some deep due diligence on number 64, that's what I'll be doing over the weekend.
Shoots. Yeah.
Yeah. But they're all worth investigation, right? But yeah, we'll make more future videos on
each
as much of these as we can.
Each of them do some sort of functionality, AI functionality. Sturdy is the one that we keep hearing about in the comment section. Targan, Shoots, obviously. So yeah, there's some that are pretty popular with the community.
Yeah, and another thing that should happen is this is going to open up essentially to an infinite scale. It's not like locked to 64 anymore. So anybody can spin up a subnet and compete and write. And you can, stake in their direction if you feel like whatever it is they're coming up with.
Yeah.
Go for it, right?
Yeah, I remember when this list like didn't really exist. It was just like validators.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. So things are moving swimmingly, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the early Polkadot days when we were trying to like figure out what this thing was. And
yeah, that's another thing to kind of like take note of is Polkadot looked really good on paper as far as like an ecosystem play and
design.
The parachains themselves
Yeah.
is like, man, this is an opportunity, but the market just did not pick up on it, did not care, and the valuations were not reflected in that.
Yeah.
So similar thing could happen here, so even though Bittensor and this new dTAO transition, everything looks good on paper, like this is a very sensible direction.
Yeah.
The market could simply just not care. Right?
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
always possible.
Yeah. The only kind of like saving concept here is that it's AI, right? AI is like probably going to be the biggest thing in this like crypto cycle, or one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Bittensor is like probably the best shot here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in TAO stats, there's subnets. So just more data like charts and just the emission rates of everything. 19 seems to be dominating here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Subnet 19. But yeah, it's all here. All right. And we're looking at a tweet by Andy. It says, if Bittensor markets were fully developed AI startups, their combined market valuation could range between 100 to 200 billion, competing with centralized companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, and CoreWeave. That's what dynamic TAO is about to do. Based on 64 subnet, what happens when we scale to thousands, with 21 million design and halvings. So he's finding a bunch of subnets and pulling them together and comparing them to OpenAI, Anthropic, and all these like projects that we all have heard of.
Well, and really like into their like what it is that these companies do, right? Like
right.
Their own individual sectors within the AI like industry.
Right.
Think of that as the same. So think of a subnet as like an individual company contributing to this like AI industry that's forming in the Web3 context, right? Like generative AI, here's one. Here are the comparable companies, Midjourney, Stability AI, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then those are these subnets that essentially are producing the same like valuable outputs, right?
Yeah. So we have market valuation estimate 30 billion and plus, and subnet value range 100 million to 2 billion currently.
How do they coming up with the current valuation? Is that based on like TAO validation and like the market cap of TAO?
I think so. It's
interesting. So there's definitely like a discrepancy there then for sure.
Yeah, because like TAO is worth 2 billion right now, 2.7.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But the point is that they're like, if these were traditional Web 2 projects like we're used to, and you combine their market caps, then it's like nothing compared to like the actual Web 2 projects.
Yeah, that's factoring in though. It's like, so that's the speculative difference, right? Like obviously when it comes to these Web 2 counterparts, these have like millions of users and stuff like that.
That's true.
That's the difference, right, between Web 2 and a lot of Web 3. It's like the actual user traction, right?
Yeah. Did we ever get metrics on pump.fun? How many users it got? All we heard was like revenue.
How much money they're making.
Yeah.
I mean, users, I don't know.
I haven't heard any numbers.
I would imagine it's like maybe 1 million at most.
Yeah.
1 million.
Which is crazy. 1 million people generate $500 million.
Yeah. I mean, that's the state of the trenches nowadays. It's probably like, it's a ghost town.
I guess it's $500 each, right?
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. So definitely read this tweet. I mean, this will give you kind of like the speculative angle as to like what it is, the potential here is.
And the categories themselves. Like if you think you have a much bigger interest in the agent sector, here it is. And then, just go back up in that tweet and see which of the subnets are focused in that arena. You think, AI compute is like the most fundamental of valuable like resources, probably is. Then there's, those subnets are probably where you should allocate your focus, right?
Yeah. All right. And we're looking at the testnet of subnet 32.
Yeah, so this is what it's going to look like on launch day, dTAO day, not D-Day, dTAO day.
Yeah.
I mean, you go there, you connect your wallet here at the bottom, like you click on an individual like alpha token that you want to essentially acquire. This looks like your standard swapping interface, right? You'll connect your Polkadot wallet that you loaded up with TAO, and I think these front ends will seamlessly do like all the back end hoopla of like staking your TAO to issue you dTAO in order for you to actually acquire these alpha tokens.
Yeah.
and it'll keep track. On the left side, you see the liquidity existing within this. So initially, it'll probably be very low, is my assumption. So I wouldn't like ape in heavily because there's going to be, you know, a lot of slippage and all that.
Yeah, it has market cap here. It's like, is that a $3,000 market cap, dude?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is
like this is a test net.
Yeah, these aren't like real figures, really. I mean, it's just they're testing things out. So that's a potentially another thing that could delay, maybe, or it doesn't happen on Monday, right? It's like, oh, something broke.
Yeah, and we're looking at another one here, TAObot, TAO.bot, the ultimate Bittensor solution. So very familiar interface, swap.
Yeah, this one you could swap directly from
ETH.
ERC20 tokens straight to the alpha tokens. Like, you don't even need to acquire TAO.
Straight from the veins, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So I don't think this is not live. So we'll see if it actually like works. But if it does, this is probably going to be like the best user experience by far, I would imagine.
Yeah, they're probably using some sort of bridge tech to go from ETH to like Polkadot.
Of course,
TAO and yeah.
They're again. Put all that back end hoopla away from the front end users. You're doing it the right way.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want users to bridge,
and you want a ton of users. So if you're enabling ETH, I mean that's like a ton of holders, right?
Yeah. So we'll wait and see, guys. Like we said, you know, right now we're just like in preparation phases. Whenever dTAO Day actually happens, we ourselves will start interfacing with some of these apps. Just to, you know, because we want to see how all this plays out for sure. And then we'll do an update video of like actually, you know, how to interact with them.
Yeah. All right, guys. So you got your homework, right? Go back to this tweet here.
Yeah. What better thing to do when all of our bags are completely vaporized to zero than homework, dude? Like studying up. I mean, that's what you got to do, though. If you want to recover and like come back in these markets, like you've got to do the fundamental analysis, guys. Unfortunately, it's part of it's all of our jobs at this point if we want to like make it.
Yeah,
because man, like memes went through quite the implosion, I would say.
Yeah, after explosion.
Yeah, explosion and implosion. So like that now there's like a new wall of like inertia.
Yeah.
Like re-inertia that has to be broken through.
Right.
In order for pure memetics to be like the only thing the market's fixated on, right? So this other stuff, this like fundamental, you know, big brain plays, this is like, this is the faded shit that any small catalyst can like, you know, reignite that interest, that wave of new interest. So
yeah, I mean, and this is AI. It's not like we're talking about, you know, something not AI,
I guess.
Fashion crypto companies.
What's wrong with that, dude? Sounds great. I'm in for that. I'm in for anything at this point. You know.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it for us. I know that you guys have like mentioned many subnet tokens, and we're gonna try to cover as many as we can, and just keep submitting what you think makes sense. And that's it. We'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.